Okay, we're recording. Hello, this is Emily Bacon with the Olive Press podcast. It's been over a year since I've recorded. So I decided to come back. I had prayed to God, like, hey, if you want me to do this, have some people tell me that they want it, and then I'll come back. And so within a 3-month period, I had 3 people tell me they really liked it, they wanted it back. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. So it's in God's hands now, if he wants it to be successful, he'll make it successful. So, but today I'm interviewing Julia Wilson. Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
So you had said you're kind of a new mom.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you and I are similar in that. I have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and I've got one on the way that's due in a month.
A month?
Or,
oh my gosh,
actually a little bit less than a month.
Whoa.
Due October 5th.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Coming up quick. Wow.
Yeah. So,
wow.
I mean, I apparently can't help but get pregnant every 18 months. Or give birth every 18 months. So, these kids are all going to be 18 months apart.
Oh, my gosh.
And this pregnancy is actually following the same pregnancy of my first.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, she was due October 2nd.
Wow.
And she was born September 27th, the day before my birthday.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
So I'm expecting this baby to come, sometime between September 28th and October 5th.
So
we'll
they're
see.
going to they might share a birthday.
They might. I really hope they don't.
Really? Gianna and Finnegan do.
Do they?
Yeah, they're exactly a year apart.
That's right. Yeah, I'm kind of hoping they don't, just because it can be awkward.
Yeah.
And especially since, I really just want this baby to be born in October because my husband will have to declare bankruptcy in September if we've got 3 babies, 3 birthdays in September.
Oh,
Not
wow.
Even, mine and then Sophia's and then maybe this one.
I thought you meant your son also is in September.
No, he's in March, thankfully. So he's March 22nd. Yeah. So he's way, he's always doomed to be a Lent baby. The closest,
no birthday cake for you.
I know. The closest he'll ever get is Holy Saturday.
Oh my gosh.
So, and I don't even think that Holy Saturday on the 22nd is even close. So he may be in his 50s when his birthday falls on Holy Saturday. But yeah. My mother-in-law actually has that same issue of her birthday always being in Lent, and she doesn't mind it at all. She loves it.
So what do they? Can you move a little closer?
Sure.
Sorry. It's again kind of a janky setup. I know this isn't recorded video wise,
that's
but
all right.
To explain to everybody, I have these Paw Patrol and Minnie Mouse they're traveling desks almost, and then I have
lap desks.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and then some paint. What are these?
Pictures.
Yep, whatever they're called. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, very janky, but it fits the theme. But
yeah. So
with Lent, sorry, that's a total tangent. So do you guys do cake for him, or do you?
Yeah. So I mean, my family, my parents, as in, we don't tend to have any birthdays in Lent because most of my family, surprisingly, actually, I come from a family of 6 kids.
Okay.
And 2 parents, of course.
Nice.
And none of our birthdays are in Lent, but most of our birthdays tend to be in the fall and winter.
Nice.
But our kind of rule about that is either move it to the Sunday, or just celebrate it on the day. You know.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the Sunday thing. You can kind of. I wonder if. Sorry, I'm putting my watch over there so
that's okay.
It's not gonna buzz. We're still kind of working out the bugs. It's pretty new still. Yeah, I wonder how they did it back in the day, I wonder if we're just fluffy, puffy, Sundays.
It could be. I mean, my parents always explained it to me with Lent as each Sunday is a little Easter, a mini Easter. Not that you're going full out.
Sure.
But that would be the day that, say, if you gave up chocolate, that would be the day you could have it. Of course, if you're doing something like giving up smoking, you can't just go and have a smoke on, on
Sunday.
exactly. Or if you're giving up things more mortal sins like sexual sins and stuff like that.
Sure.
You can't just, go all out on Sunday.
Right.
But chocolate was a pretty basic. I think that's pretty basic for a lot of people who even follow Lent and observe it, is to give up chocolate. That's like the big thing.
Yeah.
But there's been a push, I know, in the Novus Ordo to go to more lengths than just the giving up chocolate thing, just doing the basic. There's also like the whole like add something on. Now there's like Exodus 90, and there's all sorts of other things that you can do extra.
Right.
So, but there's also, there's also the thing of like Lent is not like time to diet either.
Right.
It's all about God. It's not about you.
It's so hard because you think like I used to like Lent to diet, and I guess in a sense, like fasting is kind of like that, with intermittent fasting, you can consider that. But no, I agree. It's like you're trying to better your soul rather than your body, because your body is temporal. And I think it's interesting because I feel like Lent has kind of evolved into something a lot more serious as you become an adult. Like I remember growing up, Lent wasn't, like we obviously did Lent. I grew up Catholic, but it was not emphasized as much as it is now. Like Teddy and I are pretty serious about Lent. Like not to the point of like doing like only lentils or like giving up meat for the entirety of Lent.
You're not going full Orthodox.
No.
Which is like, that's crazy.
Oh man.
The whole no eggs, no dairy.
You basically become vegan.
No meat. Yeah, exactly.
My friend is Byzantine, and she explained it to me, and I'm like, wow, okay, well, you guys are going to heaven.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. I think the whole goal though is self-denial.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I think still giving up chocolate, because some people have told me like giving up chocolate's so lame, and it's like, well, I really like chocolate.
Yeah, same.
The sweets are a big thing for me.
Same.
So the
ice
whole
cream.
Well, and I can't even keep that in the house. The whole giving up sweets thing is also important for me too, because I love to bake. So even it's not just that I'm giving up sweets. I'm giving up making them. And
that's so hard.
It can be hard. I mean, my parents used to do it. I think they still do this. They won't have any sweets in the house. My dad's also a really big sweets guy. He makes his own ice cream.
Wow.
And so, like, giving up sweets for him is a big deal. But what they do on Sundays is they get a big box of candy bars.
Okay.
And those are only for Sundays.
Wow.
So they don't have, like, cookies around or whatever.
Is this during Lent or all
during
year
Lent?
round?
During Lent. They'll give up sweets, no sweets, and they'll do the meatless Fridays, of course. But on Sunday, they'll get a candy bar. Nice. But they won't just have... That way, they don't have to worry about, well, the cookies are going bad, or, the ice cream's getting freezer burned or whatever. So they're a little bit benefited, though, by the fact that both of them work now. So there's also nothing calling to them in the house.
Right. So they're out of the... Yeah, exactly. For stay-at-home moms, I mean, you're around everything.
You're around everything all the time.
And you're like, I'm ready to beat my kid.
Yeah.
So just give me
I need some chocolate.
Like, yeah. That's what, like, because I was doing intermittent fasting for a little while, like for spiritual reasons too.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd start my fast at like 3 p.m. This was just like all year round. It didn't last for very long, like maybe a week. But I realized like I was getting angry, like towards the end, and you're already like maxed out like around bedtime, from like 4 to like 7 or 8 or whenever they go to bed, you're just like ready to blow a gasket at any moment. So like to add on being hungry, that's even worse. So it's hard like to kind of differentiate like what you can handle as a stay-at-home mom.
That's so true.
It's really
and you have to
hard.
find your peace in something that is, and that's part of it too. I mean, the whole intermittent fasting thing, like when you're getting upset, I mean, there's reasons why you're getting upset, but there's also like, I fully acknowledge that like I seek out comfort through sweets, through food, and it's good for me to deny myself with that. But trade-off is I might be a little bit more grumpy, you know.
Yeah.
My father-in-law actually gave up coffee one year, and
Oh
I think his family had to tell him that he can't do that because he was just too irritable.
Oh,
so
man.
it's such a balance.
Yeah,
and I
totally.
think that's everything with the church is the church just walks that line between, you know, ultra traditional, and I mean I think tradition is also walks that line too, but it walks the line between, like, say, politically right-leaning or politically left-leaning.
Sure.
It walks the line between cutting certain food groups out and just having everything. You know, there's a give and take thing to it.
Right. Yeah.
So.
It's hard to kind of find that middle ground because, like, I know some people that will go, like, full traditional, like, no meat during Lent at all, fasting the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, and that's awesome. You know, if that's going to be good for your soul, great. Like, 100% pop off queen, you know, but it's like, but for, like, I think especially for, like, stay-at-home moms, it's hard because you're constantly trying to keep your cool.
Yeah.
And so, like, for a nun, let's say, it's a little easier for her to, like, give up meat during Lent the entire time because she only has custody of, like, her soul, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and maybe I'm misunderstanding. Like, obviously she prays for people and stuff, but it's not like she's trying to keep her cool because she has kids. Like,
yeah. It's just a different type of cross,
Sure.
too,
Yeah.
I think, with the whole giving up thing, too. And, like, depending on how you, again, find your peace and how, you know, especially with kids, because it can be such a hard thing, and it's constant.
Very volatile.
It's a constant thing, and it's also, to make it worse, it's like all the things that you did when you were a kid that now really annoy you.
Right.
You know, so, like, you little versions of you driving you nuts.
Well, you realize your vices really fast. Like, Gianna is 100% me, like, in her personality. Yeah. And it annoys the hell out of me. Yeah. Like, and my mom is always like, that's you. And I'm like, shut up. I know. And I have to live with it. Like, so it's like, it almost, like, forces you to be a better person in a sense. But at the same time, you're like, it's like, it's hard to explain almost because it's difficult. You're living with, like, yourself and then another yourself. Yes. And you're just like,
and that other one is just and the whole emotional regulation and everything. My daughter, she doesn't take after me completely. She takes a lot after my husband. Okay. Which is really good. She's more quiet. She's more reserved. She's more willing to go off and play by herself. The downside of that is she wanders off all the time. It's I have lost her twice in Fred Meyer. She's caused a code Adam in that store.
Oh my gosh.
So they, like, I think all the people, like, all the, like, head people at Fred Meyer know who she is now.
Oh my gosh.
So, like, because she just wanders off.
And code Adam is, like, if your kid is missing.
Yes.
Okay.
It was, like, started as Adam, what it's named after is named after a kid who was infamously kidnapped and killed in the 80s. So they put through this thing in all these stores called Code Adam. And I mean, the system, I've worked at Fred Meyer, so I know how it works. Me too. Nice. Yeah. They put a manager, or there's a manager in each department, right? So Fred Meyer is a multi-shopping store. So there's a home department, there's an electronics department, there's a grocery department, there's a produce department. There's a manager for each of those departments. Those managers immediately start circling around and looking for someone who fits the description of the child. Right. They send to every door, every exit, like one of their employees who has a description of the child, and they're looking for someone. It's really meant to prevent, like, kidnapping. Sure. But I get the feeling that most of the Code Adams that are caused are things like mine where my kid just ran off.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and someone
which is a good thing.
Yeah,
you know, that
so it's really helpful.
Yeah,
you know, but it can be worrisome.
Right.
Totally.
So at the fair this year, they had little wristbands.
Oh yeah.
And that was so helpful because you put your number and not your name.
You put your phone number down.
Your phone number, yeah, and they can call you. And
my son wandered off too.
Oh, at the fair?
So, yeah, he did.
Oh,
and they found him. And I mean, I don't know what it is with my kids. They're just like I remember at one point I got to the point where I was like really concerned that I couldn't see my mom. My kids are not like that right now. My son was like, yeah, I found my people. I'm going to be a police officer. And oh, mom's here too. Great. Yeah. Like, no, like all of a sudden, like when he sees me melting down because he's like, oh yeah, my mom has been gone, you know, gosh. And it was my husband actually watching him at the time because I was getting dinner while he was watching them in the kids zone at the fair.
That's funny.
So yeah, they wander off. But anyway, going back to my daughter, the thing that she takes after me is the bossiness. She is like so bossy.
And she's 3, right?
She's about almost 3. She's like about a month away from her birthday, I guess. She will boss my husband around. And I don't know if it's because my husband is like a youngest child or what, but he just takes it. And he's also pretty even keeled too. Yeah, I'm a little bit more volatile than he is. But he just takes it. She'll tell him, kiss mommy. And then she'll be like, go work. And I'm like, you have no right to tell your father what to do. And he's just like, okay, well, I'll kiss mom. I'll go to work. I mean, it works in my favor because he's also very reserved. Okay. And he's not someone, I mean, he shows me affection, but he's not someone who's like all lovey-dovey.
Sure.
My family's very physically affectionate.
Okay.
Like we're always hugging and kissing each other and cuddling on the couch together and all sorts of stuff like that. I think that might be a big family thing too. He comes from a family of 3.
Okay.
So his family being like half the size. And his parents are more reserved too.
So is he an only child? Or?
No, he's one of 3.
Okay.
So
I see.
He's the youngest of 3.
Gotcha.
And he's a really good balance for me too, which is such a godsend.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah. But yeah, she'll boss him around. She'll boss my son around. She'll tell him, no go street. No go street, Gabriel. And which is so funny. Even when he's like nowhere near the street.
Yeah.
And then of course when he goes into the street, it's because she's next to the street. It's not so much that he just wants to go into the street.
Sure.
He wants to just follow her.
So I wonder how that dynamic is gonna be with your new baby too.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that he's following her around a lot more because he's kind of clingy.
Okay.
He's more like me.
Sure.
He's more like he wants affection. He wants to be with mom. He wants to cuddle. Sophia's never wanted to cuddle with me. She'll cuddle with dad sometimes.
Yeah.
But she's kind of like,
independent.
Ew, mom.
Yeah.
Like, don't be weird.
That's Gianna too.
And my son is like, Mommy, I love you. I love cuddling you.
Aww.
And, I was able to do skin to skin with him when he had a fever, a couple months ago because he is just he likes cuddling.
Right.
But she does not at all.
Yeah.
So it's going to be good because this next baby, I think that might cause some issues with him being a little jealous and stuff like that. Sure. But the good thing about having them so close is that they really don't remember a time when they were the youngest. And I know this too because I am as being one of 6, I'm also the oldest.
Okay, I was just going to ask,
And my siblings and I, the first 3 of us are actually closer than these 3 will be.
Okay.
So,
in age?
In age.
Okay.
We are, to give kind of an overarching number, we are 6 kids, 11 years between the eldest and the youngest.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So pretty close already. Totally. But the first 3 are very close. I was actually a preemie.
Okay.
I was 6 weeks premature.
Oh, like Finnegan.
Exactly. And my due date, I think, was in November, and I was born in September.
Okay.
Late September.
Sure.
My mom said that if I had been born on my due date, me and my brother Stephen, who was born 1991, and I was born 1990, we would have been Irish twins.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're that close.
Wow.
We might be the closest ones in age.
Okay, so you would have been 11 months. So you're like 9 months then? Or trying to do the math. Like, 10 months.
He was born in November.
Okay.
In beginning of November.
Wow.
So, yeah, like, we would have been very, very, very close.
Yeah,
like,
but even closer since you were a preemie then.
Yeah.
Wow,
So, my due date birthday, I guess, would have been very, very close to his birthday.
Dang.
So, I had just turned 1 when he was born.
Wow.
And he and my next sister, he and my first sister, Mary, are very close as well. He was born in November. My sister was due December and born in beginning of January.
Wow.
So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So we were very, very close together.
Yeah.
So, and then after those 3, we had like a 4-year break.
Okay.
And then my sister Rebecca, and she was born in 96. And the only kind of bad reaction any of my siblings had to one another was between Mary and Rebecca.
Okay.
I think part of that was just the age gap.
Yeah.
You know, Mary's, there's lots of stories my parents tell about us. But one of them was each of our reactions to Rebecca's announcement pregnancy.
Okay.
My reaction was, I hope it's a girl, because I want someone else to play with.
Right.
Stephen's reaction was, I hope it's a boy, because I want someone else to play with.
Pretty typical.
Mary's reaction was, I'm the baby. You can't have another one. I'm the baby.
Don't take this title from me.
Yeah, exactly. So she felt a little bit displacement.
Sure.
It didn't help that they are pretty opposite in personality.
Okay.
My sister Mary is very much a tomboy.
Gotcha.
She loved climbing trees. She loved playing with Stephen more than ever playing with me. She loved like sports and just being one of the guys, like all those kind of things. She liked horses.
Okay.
So, and Becca is very much a girly girl, or Rebecca. She is like little princess, like I'm a pink girl.
Yeah,
I'm like into princesses and I'm into all the girly stuff. So that was also hard.
Yeah,
and
they didn't connect very
No, and they had a hard time. Our whole family went to therapy at one point, and part of it was for their relationship. But I think as they got older and as each of them matured, their relationship became better and better.
Oh, good.
And the closeness of our family has also helped us all just become closer. When you grow up and you basically all have the same memories, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Stephen, Mary, and I all have about the same types of memories. So I've gotten closer to Mary too, even though I'm pretty girly. I'm pretty domestic too.
Yeah.
Mary's more like your typical boss woman.
Sure.
She wears like female power suits and those kind of things.
Top off.
Yeah. She's amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she works in the media now.
Whoa,
and she's
big
like
wig.
Amazing how she, manages all these things.
Yeah.
But she looks at me and goes, well, you're amazing because like I could never like take care of kids.
Sure.
And like, so we both have a decent amount of respect for each other. Which has just come with time. So I think that really helped my parents too, because I think they were worried about how much we fought. And Mary and I fought a ton. Becca and Mary fought a ton.
Right.
Stephen and Mary and I all fought, like cats and dogs, because, you're kids and you fight, and what else is there to do?
Right.
I mean, you could play together, but what's the fun in that? And then after Becca, there's a 3-year break.
Okay.
And then Teresa and Peter are a year apart.
Okay.
So they're the youngest too. So Becca, Teresa, and Peter pretty much have the same memories as well.
So it's kind of like 2 groups, essentially.
2 groups of 3.
Sure.
So yeah, and I think part of the reason for that, my mom had a very irregular cycle. So I don't know that any of us, I think at one point I asked my parents, and the only one they even tried for was for me.
Okay.
But all the rest of their pregnancies were just whatever God was going to give them.
And you grew up Catholic?
Yes,
okay.
I grew up. My mom grew up Catholic, and so did my dad as well.
Oh, okay.
My dad's actually, the cool thing about him is he's 100% Polish, even though he's also 100% American.
Interesting.
So he grew up in Ohio.
Okay.
Moving around a lot because his dad was a World War II vet.
Okay.
And he also was in the military after World War II. So he grew up with 2 other with 3 other siblings. So one of 4. So not a huge family.
Sure.
But I mean, they grew up Polish because in Ohio, there's a huge population of Polish people.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. And so you can, find, I think my dad is like 4th generation Polish too. So not his grandparents, but his great grandparents were immigrants.
Okay.
And they all grew up like speaking Polish. My dad never learned it because my grandparents, my Busha and Jaja, as we call them, you wanted it to be like their language to talk to each other without the kids knowing.
That's sneaky.
And my dad was like, he's so sad about that as an older man,
Yeah.
So he went off and he tried to learn Polish as best he could. Like they've reconnected with their Polish relatives.
Wow.
Which is amazing because after the 2nd generation of immigrants, they lost contact.
Right.
And the only time they had heard from the American side of my dad's family was when my Jaja met one of his cousins randomly in Poland after the Americans came in and freed Poland. So basically.
Oh, so your grandpa grew up in Poland?
No, he grew up in
America. Oh, but he went to Poland
yes.
for World War II and met one of his cousins.
Yes, and invited her to come back. And then my dad, years later, like 50 years later, found that same cousin before she passed away and met her. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
My Jaja died when I was very young, when I was 2. So I never got to really meet him. He never really got to meet any of my other siblings.
Sure.
And my Busha, my dad's mom, died when I was, I think, 7 or 8.
Okay.
So she even didn't get to meet Peter and Teresa.
Oh.
She only got to meet Becca and Stephen and Mary and I.
Sure.
So, it's hard to have that disconnect, So, but his family is fascinating. His mom had a smaller family similar to my dad's side and my husband's side. And his dad's side had a huge family. So, and the reason why I say this is because that's what attracted him to my mom.
Okay.
My mom is one of 9.
Wow.
And her mother is one of 12.
Oh my gosh.
So big family.
Yeah.
And just very fertile, very, happy, huge
and their
Catholic
roots,
family.
Okay, so they've all been Catholic.
Yes.
Wow.
And I think my mom's family, a lot of them have fallen away. A lot of my dad's family has fallen away too.
Sure.
The secularization has just hit so hard with everybody.
Really bad, yeah.
Yeah. But my grandmother's family is mostly in Montana.
Okay.
And a lot of her cousins are still up there, So it's interesting that we ended up here because we're pretty close to them,
Montana,
actually.
Yeah.
So my mom grew up in Oregon. She grew up, she calls herself a mutt, but that just means she is delightfly American.
Yes.
And her family is huge. So she is the eldest also.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not remembering how many boys and girls off the top of my head, but
it's hard to remember. Yeah.
So my grandma had 6 kids right off the bat.
Wow.
And
like within a pretty short period of time. Wow.
And she got married. My grandmother got married at like 18. Okay. And I think she had my mom at 20.
Okay.
So pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And she and my grandfather came down to Enterprise, Oregon, which is a small little town over in the Wallowa the Blue Mountains area.
Okay.
If you look at a map of Oregon, they're on like the right-hand corner.
Oh, okay.
Basically,
okay. I see.
Where she grew up. So that was also attractive to my dad too. He really loves nature. He loves like farming. He has a huge appreciation of like, even though my dad has a white-collar job, he's a doctor, he has a huge appreciation for all the blue-collar jobs.
Oh, nice.
As like truckers and farmers and ranchers.
What is his specialty?
He is an epidemiologist, actually.
Wow.
So he was in the thick of it with
COVID. Yeah. Whoa.
So but he got into that whole thing because his brother actually has a degree in epidemiology.
Interesting.
And my dad just got interested in it because his brother was into it.
Wow.
And my dad went on to be an epidemiologist for Oregon. Wow. For the CDC.
That's
awesome. One of their head ones. He is going to retire in a year.
Okay.
But
congrats.
Yeah. He is so ready
to
get out of there.
COVID, I mean.
Because there's so many, I think being a state employee too, there's so much politics that goes into it. And it's like you can't just, like they don't just take science at its face.
Well, and especially as a Catholic too. I mean, it's
in
hard
Oregon.
In Oregon, yeah, it's hard to like reconcile that. I feel like, like especially with like the vaccinations and stuff. Like, but it's good that there's a Catholic in there because he can actually like. You know, have
there's actually such a strong community in Portland.
Really?
You wouldn't think that, but it's very much, I used to say this a lot, it's very much like living on the front lines. Portland is a hub like San Francisco and LA and Seattle.
Yeah.
They're a hub for secularization, and they're a hub for anti-Christian, anti-Catholic sentiment.
Yeah.
Which means you always have your guard up.
Yeah.
You know. So a lot of, I mean, the fact that all of my siblings and I are still practicing Catholics
is big.
It's huge. It's kind of a miracle, honestly.
Totally.
But it speaks a lot to my parents' testament of faith. Both my parents always took their faith very seriously.
Yeah.
From different aspects of it.
Sure.
My mom is more like, I guess you could say, Norvis Ordo. She's like loves the guitars and things like that. She's totally fine with it, and you know, she just wants the music to be good.
Okay.
My dad's more of a guy who, he loves the Latin, he loves the tradition, he loves the history, he really loves the Bible.
Yeah.
Like the only time I've ever seen my dad get choked up is when he reads the Bible.
Interesting.
So he is a huge scholar type guy.
Yeah.
He loves all of that. But there was also the whole, like, take your faith seriously. You know, we are going to go to Mass every Sunday.
Sure.
Not just because everybody else is doing it, but because that's committing. That's committing to your faith. And it came from my dad a lot, too, which I think helped. I think I can count on one hand how many kids that I knew growing up who went to Catholic school, K through 12, who are practicing still.
Yeah. Same.
In that same area.
So did you go to Catholic school K through 12 then? Oh,
I did.
wow. Good job.
So, yeah, I mean, my parents, another thing too with them, they, around the time when I was born or when I was growing up, when I was young and they were looking into schooling, my grandmother had her next three and she was homeschooling them. Of course,
so your parents had kids while your grandma was having kids?
My grandma had just had them.
Oh, okay. So
like she was homeschooling them.
Got it.
When we were
born.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're close. I mean, they were all, my three youngest aunts on my mom's side were like no older than middle school.
Okay.
They were all flower girls actually at my mom's wedding.
Oh, wow.
And my mom had me after 2 years of marriage.
Gotcha.
So they were young.
Yeah.
You know, young enough that my grandmother was still taking them through school.
Right. And you grew up in Portland, yeah?
I did.
Nice.
I did. We moved there basically when I was 4 or 5.
Okay.
So we moved around a bit. With doctors, you always have residency and stuff like that. That my dad was still finishing up. You know, and my mom was actually a nurse. That's how they met.
Wow.
And she dropped that after Stephen, my brother, was born. Because, you know,
it's hard.
Daycare, I'm sure it was expensive then. It's even more expensive now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So there was always the potential they knew for my dad to make a good amount of money to support a big family.
Right.
So, which is good. So we grew up in Portland and my parents tried to homeschool me and they were like, she is so stubborn. Which is probably another thing that my daughter takes after me.
Yeah, we're thinking about that too. And I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do it. Like, just with first of all, with all that you need to know, basically, you know, like I could do kindergarten.
Yeah.
But getting up there, you know, to like multiplication and stuff, not that I don't know it, but it's like, I'm going to have to really start hitting the books again. And I just don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. So,
I mean, I'm actually a teacher by trade and I taught kindergarten for 5 years before I got married.
Nice.
And I don't even know if I could do homeschooling full time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be looking into St. Thomas's, Cabrini.
Yeah, Cabrini is
co-op.
Yeah.
I know I've heard good things about St. Michael's too.
Okay.
Co-op that's run by, I think, not run by, but I guess in the church of St. Pius X.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in that, in kind of the thing, because my concern is more about just being consistent and structured.
Sure.
You know, it's hard to be structured when you have like when you're potty training kids or when you're, giving birth to another one and you're breastfeeding and, you have to be consistent and set aside the time to do it.
It's so hard. Yeah.
Especially with reading, because reading is like a life skill. Reading and writing and math, they're all life skills. Right. They're not just something that your kid is learning to go to college, like they are, say, with some high school things, for example. Right. They're something that they're going to need the whole of their life. And you need to make sure that they can read. Yeah. You need to make sure they can write and that their writing is decently legible. And you need them to be able to add and count and do it, efficiently for many different reasons. I mean, people make the whole calculator argument and everything, but there's certain things with math that you still
have to have like a basic understanding of it. And I mean, so I went to public school. I was in a charter school in high school, but that was still like that still counted as public school. But it was important. I'm happy that I did because I did get the experiences that I needed, you know, and also I think it's different now. Yeah. But when you're in public school and you're mixed with a lot of people who have a lot of different opinions and you really learn how to fight, Yeah. You have to be staunch though.
It's your own kind of front lines too.
Yeah.
And I would say too, the private schools in Portland, just because they say they're Catholic, that doesn't mean they're acting Catholic.
Yeah, totally.
So I actually, when I taught kindergarten, I did teach in a Catholic school in the Portland Archdiocese school district, I guess you could call it. But yeah, going back to our schooling, my parents were like, we have to put her in school because she's just so stubborn. She won't take anything from us. They did actually teach me. I don't think they realized that they did teach me things like phonics and things like that. But they put me in St. Rose of Lima's school, which was at the time called Archbishop Howard. And we called it AHS for short. And all my siblings went through this school.
Nice.
And they were great. But one of the great things about them was that when we were going there, most of the teachers were practicing Catholic.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So the other thing too that was great about it was the pastor of the school was, or the pastor of the church was pretty involved with the school.
Nice.
So he insisted, I think, on having mass for the school every week.
Wow.
Which can be I don't think people realize that is kind of a rarity sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially in schools that don't have a church or chapel connected to it. But even if they do, sometimes they still go a month,
without
having mass.
Yeah.
So, or they just try and get the holy days of obligation and that's it. So Father Honegger, he's Monsignor Honegger.
Oh, good.
He was great.
Yeah.
He had really complicated homilies that none of us paid attention to. But my dad loved him. He was very academic too. And
that's awesome.
We had him over for dinner a lot.
Nice.
Because we lived right by the church. We were
that's
a block
cool.
away. So, I mean, I grew up in such a privileged location and time and place with my parents staying together first of all and then living in a neighborhood that had a church within walking distance a block away and school, plus in Portland there's a lot of pockets where you can just we would never really need to leave Northeast Portland in order to do everything. We had grocery stores nearby, we had the library nearby, so my parents fostered a lot of independence with us as we got older. To just, if you want to go to the library, well, get on your bike and go, or walk, or take the bus.
Which now, I mean, thinking about Portland, I mean, I feel like you can't even drive your car anymore in Portland in a sense, where it's
it's scary I think it's really more scary to drive than it is to walk or take any transit. I think that's intentional. I think Portland is specifically trying to make itself very much like Seattle, San Francisco, and New York. Yeah. They want their city to be a walking, biking, riding city.
Which honestly, I'm okay with that. I think that's really cool. I think it's helpful, but at the same time, if you have people that are dangerous, it's kind of nice to have a layer of metal in between you and someone with a knife.
Yeah. Well, and bikers can be really stupid.
Yeah.
My dad bikes to work because his job is actually a mile from where we lived.
Wow.
Or maybe 2 miles actually. But he still to this day bikes to work, even though he's in his mid-60s.
Okay.
But he wears a helmet. He stays off busy roads.
Sure.
And he understands the law of gross tonnage, which is there's things on the road that are bigger than you and they can kill you.
Yeah.
So you need to get out of their way.
Right.
Just because the law says that the cars are allowed to let bikers go first, that doesn't mean that you get to cut out in front of them.
Right, right.
So, and I see so many stupid Portlanders who drive around on their bikes with no helmet on.
Oh my gosh.
No visible gear.
Yeah.
Like my dad has like reflective gear and everything for when he's like
smart.
rides in the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's smart about his biking.
Yeah.
Whereas like there's people who do not know anything.
Yeah.
Like get off this busy street.
Right.
There are side streets that are perfectly safe.
Right.
You know, that you can ride on that have very little cars, but they're like driving on like a busy street.
Oh my gosh.
It's like you're really dumb. You're asking to get hit.
Exactly.
So yeah. I mean, growing up at this Catholic school, it was really fantastic just to be able to go to mass every week, to understand that, and Stations of the Cross every week too, which is also rare.
That's really rare.
So, you know, a lot of schools just can't do that.
Right.
Or they struggle to do that. As the secularization has gotten worse in Oregon, and I think in a lot of places too, what ends up happening at these Catholic schools is the rule, I guess, is if you teach religion, you have to be Catholic. What does that mean? That means I say I'm Catholic. Oftentimes it means I was raised Catholic, I was baptized and confirmed and had my first communion and first confession, but I don't go to mass currently. I'm not currently practicing.
Right.
You know, or it means I'm not Catholic, but the teacher who's like the religious educator for the whole school, or like the youth minister of the whole school, that person is teaching religion.
Got it.
So, and that's what I saw a lot with when I was teaching.
Okay.
So you end up getting these teachers who don't understand the importance of mass, don't understand the importance of Stations of the Cross.
So did they hire people that weren't Catholic then, or did
they definitely do. The Archdiocese of Portland, and I'm sure several other Catholic archdioceses and dioceses for schools. I mean, and I sort of don't blame them, because it's hard to find Catholics in Oregon who are practicing, that are teachers and that are well qualified. So with Oregon, it's actually the most unchurched state in the whole United States.
Really?
And it shows.
Yeah, totally.
It definitely shows. And the thing I notice about it is that I can go to a library here in Idaho and people are talking about like the churches they go to.
Yeah, totally.
No one's talking about any church that they go to if you go to a library in Portland.
It's almost like
church is taboo.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like if you go to church, you're a freak. More so than anything. Yeah. Like we went,
or if you think you go to church, you have to go to church every week. You're a freak.
Yeah, we went to we just went to Gresham actually in Portland.
Yeah,
my
Portland
sister.
area.
Yeah, my sister just graduated from college. She's an embalmer.
Nice.
Yeah, she was actually on. Yeah, she was on the podcast when she was going through college.
Cool.
And stuff. It was really neat.
Yeah.
She graduated from Mount Hood, and so she's working as an embalmer now. But anyway, when we were down there, it was just crazy. Like we didn't go into like downtown Portland or anything, but it was pretty astounding. Just like the vibe you get when you're down there, just very. I mean.
Self-centered.
Yeah, it's almost hard to explain.
My dad called Portland the place where the young people go to die.
Yeah,
or go to retire. I mean.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they said that in Portlandia actually.
Yeah.
Like I watched like an episode.
It's true. Don't ever any Portlander who says that show is not true. It's totally true.
No, 100%.
That's the reason why it was canceled. Yeah. Because it's too real.
Yeah. Like they said, Portland lives in the 90s or whatever.
They do.
Yeah,
they do.
100%.
Yeah, they still. I didn't even realize that recycling wasn't really a viable option. Like, what even happens to our recycled goods?
Yeah.
Until I moved out of Portland and realized that the rest of the world is still not recycling because they realize it's not viable.
Yeah, no, 100%.
But Portland is like so obsessed with recycling. My mom says she has to become a garbage Nazi because, or like our garbage police, because she's like, you can't put any food waste in the garbage.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to put it in compost. It's way worse now than it used to be.
Okay.
But you not only have to wash all your recycling.
Oh my gosh.
You have to, so milk jugs, rinse out.
Sure.
You know, anything that had food in it, you have to clean. Canned, like cans, you have to wash. You can't throw them in the trash.
Yeah.
You have to throw them in a separate bag. Because there's also people who come and collect those cans from that.
Sure.
So, you know, they want to do that too. But it also smells.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you can't just toss it in the trash. The garbage cans there are literally smaller than the compost bins where you put your food waste and the recycling bins.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And they collect those garbage cans every other week.
Nah, that's too much math for me. Like I too much sorting.
It's too much.
No.
So like my mom has to sort basically at the source. So whenever we have guests over, she has to basically say no food waste, no eggshells, no any leftover food, any like paper products, like paper napkins and things. That all has to go in the compost. Because if it went into the trash, they would never be able to, they'd overfill the trash can.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
so which is unheard of, I think, here and in a lot of places, even in Tri-Cities.
Yeah, yeah.
In Washington, they're like, Washington's not exactly like, you know, a red state.
Right.
But even there, they realize
They're like, that's a little much.
That's
dude.
insane.
Like,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole liberal mindset is just very, very strong.
Yeah, totally. But that's almost, that's interesting being Catholic then there, because you're, as you said, you're on the front lines, you know, so you kind of have to learn your faith a little more.
Yeah.
Even just as like a Protestant or whatever, like,
oh yeah,
you have to, we went to a church over there and it was definitely like more of the liberal type, you know?
What church was it?
I don't remember. I'll have to ask my sister because she had recommended it to us. Because she was a funeral director for a while, and she would talk to the priest there all the time, having him do services for them and stuff.
Right.
And he was a younger priest actually. He was like
the younger priests
from the
over
Philippines.
there are
I think.
Great. Actually,
Yes,
in
he
Portland.
was very, very
They're
good.
so traditional.
Super traditional.
There's just a fire in their seminaries, I think, that's going on.
In a
right
lot
now.
of them, I think too. Like all the younger priests that I know, they are on fire for Christ. They love the Eucharist.
Yeah.
Like, I think,
and they love tradition too.
Yes, 100%. And I feel bad saying this, and I've said this a lot, like in private, but I think once that a whole generation that went through the change of Vatican II dies off, you know, not that I'm wishing for them to die off, but I think there'll be a traditional revival.
Yeah.
And that's not to say you have to go to a Latin mass or whatever, but like for example, up here we have 4 different really good traditional parishes, you know, just within a 20-mile radius.
Yeah.
And then and I think we have different parishes that appeal to different types of worship, like St. Pius the 10th is a little more
contemporary.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. I was gonna say like kumbaya.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, they're a great parish,
which
too.
I love though. Still, like they appeal a lot to the kids, and I love
there's certainly a place for it, I think.
Sure.
Because it's just the I think part of this too a little bit is about the whole idea of rebellion. You know, the whole idea, Americans are very into rebellion.
Totally.
Like
100%.
Ever since the beginning. Come on. Like we were
rebelling
against
on rebellion.
Yeah, exactly. We're rebelling against our mother country,
Sure.
England, so to speak.
Right.
You know,
it's in our blood.
Yeah. So it's very much an American culture thing.
Yeah.
But when you rebel against the tradition so much, you know, and then you grow up and all your parents are the ones who are like, I love guitars in the church, and I love, you know, how the priest is so personable and everything.
Right.
You have the next generation is like, well, that's what my parents like.
So I kind of want to do tradition.
I kind of want to do what my grandparents were doing.
Okay.
So I listen to a lot of like Pints with Aquinas and other things like that, and they talk a lot about how there's no choice for the millennial generation. You know, the boomers got a choice whether they could do traditional or contemporary. Right. And they, of course, a lot of them chose contemporary. But now the millennials are coming up and going, we're rediscovering that tradition, and we love it
Yes.
because it's new again. It's not something old that my parents did, like the baby boomers' reaction was to their parents. It's something new that I've never heard of.
It's
before.
kind of fresh now. Like there's fresh eyes looking at it.
And you wouldn't believe, I mean, I think I would love to see a study done on the dioceses that have like an FSSP church or have just a Latin church, what the numbers are on those parishes. Yeah. Because generally they tend to be huge. They tend to be overflowing in their parishes. Right. So we went to one in Florida, actually. Oh, okay. Because that's where Sophia was born, actually, when we were traveling around the first year of our marriage. And it was so full, we didn't even sit in the church. The gym, which was the overflow, was packed.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So there were so many people.
Was this an FSSP parish? Or
I don't think it was. I think it was just a traditional Latin Mass parish.
Wow.
And it was packed. But like the oldest church this was in Tampa area. The oldest church in Tampa, like by comparison, there were barely any people in there.
Yeah. Wow.
But it was, the difference is really interesting. Yeah. Over in Portland, one of their Latin Mass parishes is St. Stephen's. And I think they've had a huge influx of people because people are just craving it. They're just craving that tradition.
Right. Well, I mean, and you look at just society as a whole, not just in a religious sense, but in general, I feel like it's so insane. Everything, like even to people that are more on the liberal side, like it's so crazy now that you're just like, I need an anchor, like everything is changing so quickly. The terms are changing so quickly. What's in is changing so quickly.
It's almost a difference between progressive. I think the other thing too is Americans are also very political, and they're just getting more political as time goes on. It's almost like there's now a difference between progressive and liberal.
Yeah, totally.
There's a liberal, progressive, and a Republican. That's really what it is. You can't
be liberal enough, I feel. Like, and you're constantly walking on eggshells. Like, I felt this in Portland, where it's like, there's all of the gender dysfunction and everything, and it's like, you want something that you feel like, you want solid ground, and it's so hard to find that, especially when everything is in chaos. So I think for our generation especially, we're like, we want something that we can rely on,
a rock to cling to in the sea,
right? Something that is not going to change. And the tradition is just that, where it's like, this has stood the test of time for thousands of years, right? And why change something that has proven itself to be very reliable,
Exactly. And has the connection. I mean, not that the Novus Ordo Mass doesn't have that
No,
connection.
not at all.
But it's a lot easier to see in the Latin Mass.
Totally. Totally.
In the TLM.
And it's not that I say, like, the Novus Ordo is invalid or anything. No. I love it. Like, St. Thomas, I've been going there since I was little. And I've seen different priests come through, and it's changed a lot since I was younger. Like, the priest when I was a kid was pretty progressive, not in the sense of, not like a Father James Martin
just the
type.
liturgy.
But like, I remember when Father Mariusz was here and they had the traditional music and stuff. Man, I mean, you could see it in the numbers, just how much people wanted it, and how many little how many families were there. It was just incredible. And so I think going forward, we are going to have a lot of tradition, and even in the Protestant churches too, like, I think tradition is coming back as well, in a sense. I think people are like,
it's a pendulum thing too.
Yeah, totally. It swings very frequently, I think,
and it's definitely swinging back towards tradition.
Right. So like, raising your kids, so is your husband really traditional as
well? He
well?
actually grew up around here. He grew up going to the traditional Latin Mass too.
Oh, wow.
So it has a very special place in his heart.
Right.
The fact that some things that just what traditionalists do are really impressive.
Sure.
I think.
By the way, there's an ice cream truck going through our neighborhood, so you will probably hear music.
Yeah. ice cream. They're always trying to get us,
I
man.
know. They're coming for me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So like when I first met him, so I guess fast forwarding, we went through going back to kind of the origin.
Sorry, story. We're totally going off.
But going back to a little bit of an origin story. I did not enter a public school system until college.
Okay.
But I saw a lot of secularization in even my private Catholic high school. And that was really bad.
Sure.
I had a few teachers who were religious, but that is really where it suffers in Portland, especially. There's actually, and a lot of people like blame the Archbishop for this, but the Archbishop actually only has control over like 2 or 3 high schools.
Yeah.
The rest of them are run by these orders, and it's the order's fault. So they're hiring these secular teachers because if you don't teach religion, well, you don't have to be Catholic.
Right.
So they're hiring non-Catholic math teachers, non-Catholic art teachers, non-Catholic science teachers.
So in a sense, you kind of got a feel for like the secularization,
yes,
in your school.
And it was really hard. I mean, I struggled with high school. I think I would have struggled with high school anyway.
Yeah.
But I struggled with it in the fact that there was just no respect for the faith. There was not
in a faith-based school.
In a faith-based school. I went to De La Salle North Catholic.
Okay.
And there's 2 LaSallian schools in Portland. There's La Salle and then there's De La Salle. And De La Salle is in inner city Portland. It's in North Portland. Okay. And then La Salle is just outside of Portland in one of the suburbs.
And that's the one you went to?
No, I went to De La Salle.
Oh,
I went
okay.
to the inner city one.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, on other aspects, De La Salle is really great. They made their tuition pretty affordable by doing a work internship program. So
is De La Salle, is that the order that runs it? Or?
Yes, the LaSallian brothers.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, founded by Saint Jean Baptiste de La Salle.
Are they the ones who have the grotto in Portland?
No.
Okay.
I don't remember who has that grotto.
That was Servite. The Servite order.
Yeah, that's the Servite
that's
order.
beautiful, by the way.
Oh, I love
just as just as an aside, that is beautiful.
We actually used to walk there too for Mother's Day.
Did? Wow.
This is if you're looking for something to do on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Pray the rosary and make some sort of like pilgrimage to a church or something.
That would be really cool.
My mom was huge into the rosary. I honestly think there's a reason why moms love the rosary. It's like Mary, like the ultimate mom, the ultimate wife, the ultimate mother and daughter.
Totally.
My mom was like, well, it's Mother's Day, it's Mary's Day too.
Yeah.
So we would pray the entire rosary,
the whole 15 decades,
and walk there to the grotto because we were about a couple miles away, but we'd make it to the grotto and pray the last series of decades. We'd pray the glorious mysteries at the grotto, and then we'd go out to brunch, do the typical secular Mother's Day thing.
Yeah.
But that was also huge for us.
Do you feel like that could be part of the reason that you're all Catholic is because of your devotion to the rosary?
I think that's some of it. I really think it's my dad that instigated that because he took it seriously. There's so many families in Portland especially, but around a lot of places where they see religion as like the mom's thing. Okay. That's just what mom does. Like a feminine type thing. It's feminine. Sure. And I think that's another attraction to the traditional Latin Mass. I think it is very masculine. There's something very masculine about be quiet, sit down, kneel down, open your mouth, and take in Christ. Yeah. This is not about you. You're not talking. And that's very masculine, I think. Yeah.
It's like the silent worship, I feel like it feels stronger to me. And like, I think singing is definitely important, but when you have the responsorial psalms and all of that, it's hard, and especially with kids too. I don't know. I almost feel like it's easier to have kids at a Latin Mass than Novus Ordo in some ways. Yeah. Where it's like...
I think there's different challenges.
Totally.
Too.
Totally.
My daughter will actually... My kids are not good at Mass.
No, and we don't even take our kids to Mass actually anymore.
It's so hard. It's so hard. My kids just run around the whole time in the cry room.
Yeah, same.
So we have a hard time with them in Mass.
We have to split a lot of times.
But what happens in the Latin Mass is Sophia, my daughter, she knows, because everyone is showing respect in the church at the Latin Mass. She knows when we go up to communion, we fold our hands.
Yeah.
And she's known that for like 6 months.
Yeah, yeah.
Like at 2.5, this girl was folding her hands and walking up the aisle like she was about to receive the Eucharist, even though of course she doesn't.
Sure. Yeah.
But they do not have that when we've gone to Novus Ordo Masses. It's like there's so much going on.
Yeah,
there's so much noise that it's just the reverence is kind of lacking, and that always mystified me growing up.
Yeah, it's interesting growing up with both, I think, because you kind of get a sense of what like a reverent Novus Ordo is and what isn't, and it's hard, but like with traditional Mass, it's almost like
it's easy.
It's always there.
It's right there.
Yeah.
It's clear.
Gianna, when we go to St. Pius, which is more of a like guitar type Mass, she's so funny because we do kneel when we receive the Eucharist, and she sticks out her tongue when we're out.
I love that.
When we're up there. And she's like, we're really trying to like be immersive with that, like with the faith, just have it be so involved in everything that it's almost like it would be difficult to leave, not because we're like trying to like you stay put and be Catholic, but like we want her to know that it's important. But she prays the rosary with us now, and I didn't even know she knew the Hail Mary, and she all of a sudden rattled it off one day, and I'm like,
it's amazing what they pick up too.
Yeah,
we've started actually saying the rosary every day.
Oh really? That's awesome.
As a family, and just because I think like those kinds of prayers, the rosary, for example, is so child friendly. And I think that's part of the thing that attracts women. Right. But that also can be a detriment, because if you only pray the rosary, then it's like, well, we've been doing this since I was 5.
Right.
I'm 15 now, Mom. Like, can we do something else? My dad actually, because he loves the Bible so much, he at one point said, I am quite bored of the rosary. I love Mary, but I'm quite bored. Yeah. So we started memorizing Psalms.
Interesting.
And that was so huge for us, because all of a sudden we started memorizing these Psalms that we started seeing in Mass. So my dad would actually be like, I'll give you a quarter if you can recognize a psalm that we've memorized in Mass.
Bribery. Nice.
So,
Love that.
Yeah, it was bribery, but heck, it worked.
It worked.
Like, all of a sudden, we're paying attention in Mass. We're not just playing.
Yeah.
We're listening, because, like, you get paid to hear the psalm.
So how old were you when that started?
Oh, I don't know. I think I was in middle school.
Okay. But it still worked.
It worked. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, we're more engaged in Mass. We started talking about the homily. What did you notice about the homily? Did you take anything away from it? And that was huge. That's one of those things that my parents say is just a God thing.
Sure.
And I totally agree. That whole inspiration, because my dad just loves the Bible so much.
Right.
And now, like, the Psalms are so key. They love doing the Liturgy of the Hours for the same reason.
Oh, wow.
And I have found that sometimes my deepest prayers can come from the Psalms. I think one of my favorites is Psalm 51, and the crying out to David. It's truly timeless.
Yeah.
From David. And that's huge too.
Well, they mimic, they really just shine a light on the human experience, and I feel like Catholics especially, there's kind of that stigma, like, oh, we don't read the Bible, but the whole Mass is based on the Bible, the Mass actually, so the Bible, I just learned this actually in a homily recently, where it was the Bible, like, as a whole put together, didn't come out until 300 years after Christ's death. Yeah. And the Mass was what was keeping it alive. And then they compiled it all, and there's the Bible, and so, but the Mass was what was keeping the faith alive before that became a reality. And so it's important to really, like, think about how our roots are so connected to the Bible. Everything we believe is based on the Bible. So it's like with sola scriptura and stuff.
That's why that whole argument, sola scriptura, is so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's really hard
because if you think about it, like, well, 300, what were they doing for 300 years?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it wasn't so much that the Bible wasn't completely compiled either. It was just like, there's so many different books, and what is the actual book that goes into the Bible? There was a huge selection process that happened.
Sure.
And in fact, if another podcast I listen to is Jimmy Akin's Mysterious
World.
I love him.
I love
his podcast.
So awesome.
Oh yeah. Jimmy Akin and Trent Horn are like my top favorite apologists.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, but
Pints with Aquinas is awesome too. Like, it'd be really cool if Matt Fraud invited me on a show. Just kidding.
That would be funny.
Like,
that
it's
would be
like
great.
Very far away, but like, they he has them on, and I like the last one with Jimmy Akin was like 4 hours long. I listened to the whole thing.
Did I. I think it was actually 6 hours.
Was it 6?
I think it was 6.
I was like, I will listen to this from start to finish.
Yeah.
It was, and then just recently he did one with Trent Horn.
Right.
And it was a debate, Mormonism debate.
Oh, yeah.
And that one was like, it blew my mind. And it was actually interesting because the Mormon guy had some good points. And I'm like, not to the point that I'm going to like convert or whatever, but it was very interesting to hear. And like hearing the history, because I mean, as a mom, I don't have a lot of time to like actually discover the history of like the
or like
church
learn
fathers
apologetics. I mean, when do you have time to read when you're a mom?
Right.
Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Like if it's not in like a reel form, I'm probably not gonna
or an
like,
audio form.
Yeah, you know, like the reels like on Instagram or whatever. I just got rid of Instagram, but YouTube kind of has that.
Yeah.
But if it's not in like podcast form, I'm probably not gonna learn about it.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to watch kids and make sure they're not gonna poop on the ground. Like,
or like even just making dinner, cleaning up.
Yes.
Like there's so many physical things that you have to do as a mom.
Right.
That you just need something going on in your ear too. Because the other thing that you and I both know is that, and that lots of moms experience, is that you have all these kids and they're not exactly like the greatest conversationalists.
No.
I mean, I love kids and I love my kids, but my daughter does not like talk to me about the intricacies of the Latin Mass.
No.
She doesn't really talk to me about like her thoughts on like scripture or anything like that. So, you know, it's not.
Gianna's pretty one-dimensional. She's like, watch Bluey, have milk.
Exactly.
Get me Bluey. Like, she literally will be like, I need to watch Bluey. And I'm like, not with that attitude, girlfriend.
And so you're in the middle of parenting and everything.
Yeah.
My husband, when I talked to him about it, because he's not a huge Pints with Aquinas fan, but he is a Trent Horn fan.
Nice.
And he hasn't listened to Jimmy Akin mostly because he's not a podcast guy.
Man.
But
what's your husband's name?
His name's Martin.
Martin, you listen to this podcast and this podcast only.
Yeah. He should definitely, I think he would really enjoy Jimmy Akin.
Yeah.
But what he's said is that what he likes about Trent Horn and Jimmy Akin is that there's a lot of like egos that happen in podcasting.
Sure.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing. But what's great about Trent,
confidence?
Like you're listening to it for the person.
Gotcha.
You know, sure. And I will admit I enjoy listening to Matt Fradd because he has a great personality.
Yeah,
you know, and there's
cool
lots
dude.
there's lots of podcasts that are very popular.
Yeah,
Joe Rogan, I think, is another one like that too.
Yeah.
But the thing that attracts my husband specifically to Trent Horn and to even Jimmy Akin is that they let the truth speak for themselves. Very similar to St. Thomas Aquinas.
They're just kind of a vessel for the truth.
So they're talking about the truth. There's no like what Jimmy Akin believes or what Trent Horn believes. I guess there is a little bit of that with Jimmy Akin.
Yeah, like you kind of bring in a little bias, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's mostly just talking about what the church teaches. And that's the same with Trent. So, and that's what attracts him. And I think that's also what attracts men to the Latin Mass, too.
Yeah.
There's no, like, this priest likes to do it this way, or this priest likes to do it that way. There's just the rubrics. Yeah. And that's it.
They read what's in the red.
Exactly.
And that's,
and that's all.
And that's all. Yeah. I love that, though, because it's like, you know what you're expecting, and you go into it, and it's like, because Teddy's the same way, where he's like, he has expectations of how it's supposed to go. He doesn't want anything extra. He's just like bare bones. This is how it's supposed to be, you know, and that's why, because he's a convert, you know, but he went to the high mass, the traditional Latin mass.
Oh, wow.
That was his first mass that he went to.
Whoa.
With me.
What a change. Oh, my gosh.
He was non-denominational.
Oh, wow.
And when we met, because we met on Tinder, and he had asked me to be his girlfriend, like, what was it, like the day after our first date or whatever. He was, like, very much, you know, like, straightforward, like very fast, you know, and I'm like, you have to go to mass and see what I'm about, you know, meet my first love, which is Christ. And so he went, and I don't remember taking him to a high mass. He does. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, no, don't be, because I loved it. It was great. Like, he read the catechism all the way through the night before.
Wow.
He really wanted to know. And he it took a little bit for him to really decide, like, okay, I'm gonna actually become Catholic, but it was a pretty natural, like, jumping off point, you know, where
that's awesome.
He was like, I am tired of eating fluff, you know, like marshmallow sandwiches, like, I want steak and potatoes type, you know, and so that's why he was like, I want to be Catholic. And I think that, going back to, like, Jimmy Akin, that's how it is with, like, him and Trent Horn. They're just like, this is how it is. They just say it how it is, and they don't, I mean, of course they bring in a little bias in the sense of, like, they have life experience.
Yeah, and everyone has a little bit of bias.
Sure, but they're saying, like, something that's true, and they don't apologize for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is so refreshing.
It is. And I think that's what our society, going back to the secularism too, that's what our society craves.
Yeah.
So Catholic Answers, I think, like, talk about a company that's doing God's work.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So when I went to college, I actually not reached out to them, but I used them a lot because my faith was being tested in ways that I didn't realize before.
Right.
You know, when I was in high school, it was being tested too, but not as strongly because I was still at home.
Sure.
So when you're in college, you know, or even when you first start living on your own, all of a sudden it's like, you know, what am I going to do about this?
You're an individual.
Yeah, how am I going to live my life? How am I going to structure my day?
Sure.
You know, no one's telling you how to structure your day. You're telling yourself how you're going to structure your day.
So were you 18 when you went to college?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was in college for 5 years.
Okay.
I got my master's in teaching.
Nice. Good for you.
Thank you. Yeah. I did that actually because Oregon has a rule that after 10 years after you get your license, you have to get your master's.
What?
Yeah.
So, wait, license for teaching?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you meant your
teaching,
driver's license,
no.
and I'm like,
no,
what?
your teaching license. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, and so with teaching, I was like, well, why would I go and have 10 years of teaching?
Yeah.
And then be like, I could have kids at this point.
Sure.
You know, who wants to go through their master's degree with kids? And a lot of people do.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I'm just going to do
My
it
grandpa
now.
did.
Yeah. I'm just going to do it now and knock it out.
That's great.
So, yeah, I went to Eastern Oregon University, which is over in La Grande.
Oh, okay.
You know, small town. It's actually like an hour and a half away from Enterprise.
Oh, wow.
So I saw my grandparents a lot more.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Did you meet your husband in college?
No, I didn't. I actually met him. Poor guy. He had to wait so long for me. I met him in 2019. Okay. So that was about 4 years after college.
Okay.
I had been dating. So fast forward after college, still strongly Catholic. I got a job that fell through with teaching at a public school, and then I was like, that's it. I'm going to teach at a private school. I would much prefer to teach at private schools. A lot of weird things are happening at certain public schools.
Sure.
One of the things that is not necessarily a religious issue is that they're cutting a lot of funding for the arts.
Interesting.
And it's just like funding issues.
Yeah.
You know, and Oregon's not exactly the richest state.
Sure.
But like, I'm talking like full days of like teaching to tests and like reading and math and writing, and that's it. That's your day.
Wow.
You know, so, and in second grade. So definitely really, really hard.
Wow,
yeah. You know, there's lots of struggles. And then there's also like the whole cliquey thing. There's lots of other issues that can come in depending on the school that you're at.
Sure.
So, you know, I left that job after like 6 months. I got a job at teaching at a Catholic school in Eugene, O'Hara Catholic School.
Okay.
Come to find out, I think it is actually one of the biggest Catholic schools in the Portland Archdiocese.
Wow.
like in terms of numbers.
Yeah,
they have 2 teachers per grade.
Wow.
So, and I swear my brother got me that job because he was a seminarian at the time.
Oh, is he a priest now? Or?
No, he actually fell out. He discerned out of the seminary.
Okay.
And he's now actually happily married. He just got married this summer.
Wow.
Which is great. So, but he was a seminarian, and they have a seminary's tea. And the principal of this school had gone to that seminary tea and met my brother. Or my last name used to be Cieslak.
Okay.
There's not a lot of Cieslaks in Oregon. I'm going to tell you all right now.
I feel like that's a rare
really
name
rare
anyways.
name. Well, it's a rare name over here.
Oh, okay.
It's actually pretty common over in Ohio, where there's lots of Polish people, and very common in Poland.
Sure.
But Cieslak's not very common over here.
Yeah.
So I really feel like the principal put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
I think I had 3 interviews and then got the job.
Wow.
I taught kindergarten.
Nice.
For 5 years. I learned so much. I learned way more than I learned in college about teaching.
Yeah.
There. I loved it.
It was hands-on, you know.
Yeah.
You can't can't learn how to deal with a kid, like, eating their own poop, you know.
No, or
in
whatever.
A book.
Yeah. Actually, we had a norovirus outbreak the first year that I taught.
Oh, that's
it was
the worst.
crazy. Yeah, but so all the ins and outs of teaching at a private school.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. I was dating a guy down there, and I dated him for 2 years. He was Catholic. I was a part of the Catholic young adult group, which is kind of the next step in terms of like socialization and everything. Sure. But I kind of think everybody kind of knows the Catholic young adult group is kind of where you look for your husband or wife.
Yeah.
I mean, there's fellowship too. But,
yeah.
But you also are kind of like,
scoping out
what's the dating pool like over there?
Exactly.
So I dated him for 2 years, and was getting a lot of red flags from him.
Okay.
Not bad things, just like
little things.
Well, like I didn't get along with his parents very well.
Oh, okay.
And I feel that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
My dad has always gotten along very well with my mother's mother. He's always gotten along well with his mother-in-law. My mom always talks very highly of her mother-in-law.
Sure.
You know, so it's hard when you don't get along with your in-laws.
Yeah.
And that's like because you are really marrying into each other's
a family. Yeah. I'm happy that my in-laws are really cool. Like we get along really well. Yeah.
So that was like red flag versus green flag with Martin. So this guy too, after 2 years of dating him, I was like, well, where do you think our relationship is going? And he said, well, I think I need to get to know you more. And
after 2 years?
Yeah, I know. My reaction was like, you had 2 years. I didn't say this to the poor guy.
Yeah.
I think I tried to let him down as easily as I could.
That's a big red flag.
But yeah, like, I mean, I know in today's secular world, everyone's like, oh yeah, we've been dating for 5 years.
That's a long time.
That's a long time for someone who does not believe in sex before marriage.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a long time for someone who is dating to get married.
Right.
Like, that's the end goal.
I feel like you should... Actually, I think they did a study where it's like after 4 months, you should know if you love the person or not.
Yeah, and I think in traditional circles, it's basically considered if you haven't proposed after 6 months, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So
my gosh,
it was
2
like,
years.
Yeah, 2 years. 2 years I was with this guy. So I, immediately was like, I don't think this is working. I think I need to see other people.
Smart.
And, and then I started doing what my mom had been pushing me to do, which is go online. Okay. And I had hesitated first because I was like, well, I want to find someone in Oregon.
Like a Catholic, like Catholic Match?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd looked at Catholic Match before. I didn't really like the dating pool
How old were you at this time?
I was like 20, I think 2019, I was almost 29.
Okay.
I started looking actually in 2018.
Okay.
So I was 28, and I was like, I finally realized there's not a huge Catholic dating pool in Oregon.
Yeah.
There's really not. So, because your standards are, okay, I'm looking for a strong Catholic. Sure. That's standard number 1. Who practices their faith. Standard number 2. Who is a man.
Yeah.
Of course. But also who likes me.
Yeah.
And who gets along with me and my family. Those are a lot of standards already.
Those are pretty basic, I feel.
They're pretty basic, but they're high standards for a state like Oregon where there's not a lot of Catholics.
Right.
So your dating pool gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
Right.
So I was like, I give up. I give up on trying to find someone in Oregon.
Sure.
I don't care where they are. I'll move to wherever they are if it means that I can be happy and be married happily to a man who loves me, who's Catholic, you know, who I can have kids with. And then I went on Ave Maria Singles.
Okay.
And that's where I met Martin. Like,
interesting.
Talk about a God thing. I think I was on there for like 2 weeks.
Was he at Ave Maria in Florida then? Or?
No, Ave Maria Singles is just a website.
Oh, okay. So it's not affiliated with the college.
I don't think it's affiliated with the college.
Oh, okay.
But it is.
Oh, so you did like the.
I did like the alternate version of Catholic Match.
Yeah. Catholic Match.
So the difference between Catholic Match and Ave Maria Singles is with Ave Maria Singles you pay a one-time subscription and it's for life basically.
Oh, wow.
Or until you stop using it.
Yeah.
Because you got married or whatever.
Sure.
Whereas Catholic Match you have to pay monthly.
Oh,
Like a normal subscription.
I think I did that once. Yeah, I did do Catholic Match, like the paid version.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be hard. My brother actually did Catholic Match and found his wife on Catholic Match. And she was in Oregon. There's been some good success with that, but you really have to keep strong on it.
Yeah.
You know, and I was on there, I think maybe 2 weeks, and then he messaged me.
Wow.
From his perspective, he was on there for like 7 years or something.
Oh my gosh.
He was on there for a while, maybe 5. He'll correct me, I'm sure. But he was on there for a while and he was like, I'm not using this. So I'm just going to send out 10 messages to 10 different girls. And if no one responds to me, I'm going to just be like, that's it. I'm going to be a bachelor the rest of my life.
Wow.
And I responded. So
you were the first
I was the one who responded.
And he was like, that's it.
That's it. Yeah. Whoa. So he was working. So he grew up here and was working as a pipe fitter.
Oh, okay.
At the time for a large construction company called TIC Kiewit. And they build like commercial factories.
Wow.
So like a commercial pipe fitter, that's huge. Like getting liquid or gas from point A to point B type thing and how to get the pipes through and the venting and all that.
That's a hard job.
Yeah. Very hard job. And a lot of the construction jobs are usually in the summer where it's hot.
Sure.
And they're usually in the south where it's very hot. So he was working at the time in Colorado and then he moved to Texas.
Oh, man.
And we started seeing each other. We started flying back and forth. He flew to me in 2019 in May. He was the first one to call me.
Wow.
Like I gave him my number and he called me. We FaceTimed all the time. And we just really hit it off.
Yeah.
So after a year of dating, he proposed in Portland.
Oh.
I picked the place because he didn't know. He was like, my family's very involved in everything.
Sure.
And he comes to me like after Christmas in December of 2019. And he was like, is there some place we can go? And I was like, I know exactly what you need and I know exactly what you're about to do.
So where was it?
So it was called Rocky Butte.
Okay.
Close to our house, about a couple miles away. It has, a butte is like a huge, like a small plateau.
Okay.
So it's basically like a mini mountain in the middle of the city.
Sure.
And we went to the top of that. There was no one there.
Wow.
We made 2 rounds. He proposed. I said yes. All that.
Nice.
And then 2020 happened. You know, I finished up my school year. When I came back to school after the Christmas break, I told them, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm getting married. I'm moving to Texas with this man.
Wow.
I'm going to be living in a trailer.
What part of Texas were you?
South Texas, so Corpus Christi area.
Oh, wow.
He was building a plastics refinery plant down there that was huge. So huge job, 2-year job for them. And I was like, and the principal was kind of sad that I left. Yeah. I felt bad because I really liked my job a lot.
You got a life.
But, well, it was also like, I told my mom, I found my pearl. I found my pearl of great price. Oh. I am going to go and marry this man. I'm going to go and go where he goes and do what he does and be with him. His God will be my God. And like that whole, it was just so affirming.
Sure.
And then during COVID, that all happened and our wedding plans kept getting thrown out.
Yes.
So we had I think 6 wedding plans.
We got married during COVID too.
Did you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It crazy,
was so
right?
hard.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
So what did you guys end up doing then?
We had an illegal reception. So my dad, because he was an epidemiologist, was involved in a lot of this. Okay. And I will say, as liberal as Kate Brown, the governor down there, is.
Yeah.
At least she was
Oregon?
in Oregon. At least she was talking with the Catholic Church.
Yeah, yeah.
So there were lots of states that would just shut down the church. The church would ask, how many people can we have now? Mm-hmm. And they'd be like, no, you can't have mass right now.
Yeah.
But the Catholic Church in Oregon, the Archdiocese was in constant communication. What can we do? That's
awesome.
How can we, and they were receptive.
Yeah.
Oregon was receptive to
better
that.
than Idaho. They shut down all the churches up here.
Yeah, and better than, I think, Washington and California too.
Yeah, totally.
Which is kind of surprising because they were also, all three of those states, Washington and California and Oregon, were looking at each other to see what's Washington doing, what's California doing. Yeah. Maybe we should just do that.
Because they're pretty similar in their
political ideology. Yeah. So, I mean, as liberal as she is, at least she was having conversations with the Catholic Church on it.
Sure.
So we would get updates every now and then. You can have 50 people, you can have 25 people, you can have 100 people. I think by the time we got to my wedding, which was in December of 2020, we could have like 100 people.
That's nice.
So at that point, I was begging people to come to my wedding.
Yeah,
because I'd had so many limits,
Right.
But the reception, we had no idea what we were going to do. Yeah. So we thought about having it in like an Airbnb. We thought about having it, and we started to get concerned that the Airbnb would rat on us, basically. We tried to have it like legally in a hotel, like you kind of normally do with receptions.
That's so expensive, though.
It's expensive, and they ended up being like, no, we can't do it.
Wow.
So we ended up using a field. Like a muddy field.
Nice.
December in Portland is rainy.
Yeah.
And cold. That was owned by a friend of my grandmother's.
Oh, wow.
So like they had a farm out in Hillsboro.
Okay.
And we set up shop there. The other thing too that was going on was like my dad had actually gotten in trouble because there'd been a family gathering to say goodbye for my cousin who was becoming a nun in Europe. For her to say goodbye to both her mother and my grandfather, who were both dying at the time, and they both ended up passing that year.
Wow,
from cancer.
Oh man.
So, and my dad got in trouble for that, like at his job.
Wow.
Yeah. So we couldn't have the reception at my parents' place either.
Oh, man.
So that was the concern because the whole ratting on people thing was totally a thing. Yeah. It was totally happening.
100%.
So we ended up having it in this field, and despite the fact that like we didn't have anything super fancy.
Yeah.
I rented tables. I rented a bathroom. I rented a dance floor. I rented a tent. My sisters and my cousin, who were all my bridesmaids, I had 4 bridesmaids. Mm-hmm. They all decorated with my aunts.
Wow.
Like we scrambled the family. And
that sounds beautiful.
Oh my gosh. We have nothing but positive things to say about it.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So special because my cousin actually, who's strangely enough Mormon, gave me the best advice. She said, there's things that are going to go wrong on your wedding day, but that's not important. What the important thing is that you got married.
That's beautiful.
And so that advice has stuck with me, and I give it to everyone. Every woman who's getting married. Because that really is the most important thing. Right. The sacrament is the most important thing that's happening. Yeah. You're getting married. Who cares if you have your reception in a muddy field? Right. Who cares that, all the suits were covered in mud at the end of the night? Who cares that, the vans got stuck in the mud, actually? They did. Oh, my gosh. So my brother got it stuck in the mud at, midnight. Gosh. But there were so many good things that came out of that. Yeah. We could leave whenever we wanted.
That's awesome.
So the whole wedding party left at midnight.
Wow.
We partied until midnight, man.
Dang.
We brought our own alcohol. My brother got a bunch of beer. My parents bought a bunch of wine. My husband and I got recipes for 2 alcoholic punches. Oh, and we had that. I mean, we had the drinks were flowing. The food was great. The caterers basically promised not to tell.
Fantastic.
And my friends brought up the wedding cake from a patisserie down in Eugene.
That is amazing.
So it was just so special.
Yeah, totally.
And most of my family got COVID afterwards.
Nice.
But they all lived. So
oh, yeah, of course.
Fine.
Yeah, we had a lot of COVID.
They were a little upset, but, especially the liberal ones were a little upset. But it was like, you know what? You lived. You're fine.
Yeah. You have a story to tell. Wow, that's awesome.
And then we moved down to Texas.
Wow.
For 6 months, and then the job was ending, so we moved to Florida.
Okay.
And then my husband decided, you know what, I need to quit this job because they weren't treating him very well.
Okay.
So soon after Sophia was born in September, he quit around, I think, end of October.
Okay. Was she born in 2021?
Yes.
Okay.
2021
okay.
she was born. So he quit around 2021, and we said, well, you know, we'll quit for Christmas, and we'll spend Christmas with his parents.
Nice.
So we parked our trailer in Louisiana at a friend's house. We drove my little Honda Civic car to Texas and parked that at my aunt and uncle's, and then flew out to Idaho.
Wow.
And then eventually we got our trailer up here. Eventually we sold it. Eventually we got my Honda Civic up here too. And his truck that was pulling the trailer as well, we sold that as well. And he found a job up here. He just switched jobs to a different HVAC company.
Oh, cool.
So he's always been kind of a trades guy, not so much because he's not academic, but because he's almost too academic to be in college.
Sure.
He's like, I don't really want to have the loans.
Yeah.
So
Teddy's kind of thinking that too.
I was lucky enough to have my loans not only be not that expensive because I went to a cheaper, smaller college.
Sure.
But my dad actually helped me pay off my loans before I got married.
That's amazing.
Like, we paid off all of them. So I went into this marriage debt-free, which is huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
That's
these days.
very rare.
Yeah. So, you know, so that's kind of where we were, you know, a couple years ago. And then we got pregnant again with my son, Gabriel. And now we're pregnant again.
Nice.
So, you know,
Wow.
just having kids, and he's got this great new job that he loves.
Yeah.
You know, working for a smaller company. Has
Is he
really
working for
been good.
Trademark or?
No, he's working for a company called Pro One Heating and Cooling.
Oh, okay.
Shout out to them. They are amazing.
I've heard of them. I've heard good things. Yeah.
I've heard good things about the one that St. John's works with a lot.
Comfort.
Comfort. Heard good things about Comfort too.
Jessica Flynn's husband owns that.
Yeah.
She was the second episode.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard really good things about that one too. I think the thing Martin really likes about Pro One is that it's a small business for one, and he likes that. He likes that he can talk with the owner.
Sure.
You know, face to face.
That's awesome.
With working with TIC Kiewit, there's a lots of red tape that you go through with a huge corporation like that.
Sure.
And, you know,
it's not personable.
No, it's not. And there's a lot of it's just so corporate.
Sure.
And corporations like that tend to be, they get more and more top heavy.
Right.
You know, whereas it's a small business, you know, there's a secretary, there's the owner.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And then there's the workers.
Right.
You know, so there's that. And then Pro One they actually sought him out when he started looking for a job.
Nice.
And he interviewed with them and really liked them, and they really like him. So
sweet.
It's been a really good change.
And
for
you
him.
guys have lived up here for 3 years now?
About 3 years now.
Okay. Yeah.
We moved in with my in-laws at the beginning for a year, and then 3 months before Gabriel was born, or 4, November of 2022, we moved out.
Okay.
And we've been living outside of their house at least ever
Sure.
since. But we see them all the time, which has been great for them
Nice.
too.
Yeah,
There are two other kids, one of whom has been international. She lives she's lived in Sweden, she's lived in India,
Dang.
she's lived in England. And then their other one, their son, lives in Kansas, but has also been connected with this company that my husband had, with TIC Kiewit.
Okay.
So they moved around a lot as well, and they finally settled in Kansas. So they're both far away. So my in-laws have never really got to see grandkids when they're little and watch them grow up. So it's been great for them.
Right.
They love it. My
sure
parents
they do.
are just getting to this point.
Yeah,
They've
yeah.
seen a lot of their nieces and nephews grow up.
Sure.
But my in-laws are like, we haven't been around little kids in 5 or 6 years.
Are you the only one with kids?
No, that my brother-in-law, my husband's brother Nathan, has 5.
Okay. Nice.
And my sister-in-law Claire has 1.
Okay.
So they've seen those kids, but they just haven't been around them.
Not close
enough to watch them grow up.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So there's just so much delight that they have.
That's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's great. And that's one of the things I love about my in-laws too.
Yeah.
They're pretty structured people, which I love too, because my family's more loosey-goosey.
Sure.
You kind of have to be sometimes with a big family too.
Yeah.
But even with that, they still they love how wild my kids can
Yeah.
be. And
it's a nice change for sure.
It's so great to see them be grandparents.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're pretty much caught up to speed on the present day.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And you guys aren't gonna move anytime soon, probably.
No, we're probably gonna stay here for the interim.
Nice.
We really love St. John's.
It's so beautiful up here. Yeah.
And it's, oh my gosh, one of the things I learned when we were living in Corpus Christi, which is actually a coastal town on the Gulf of Mexico. And when we were living in the Tampa area too, which is actually also on the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not really a beach person.
Same.
I'm totally a mountains girl. I miss the mountains so much. And just the snow and the changing of the seasons, and like we're getting an early fall now, and I'm like so excited for that.
I know it's finally cold, and I'm like, yes.
Oh yeah.
It's like the pumpkin spice lattes just brought it in.
Oh yeah.
I'm like,
or even just the pumpkin bread and pumpkin pies, apple picking.
Yeah.
Which my dad's huge into apple picking, or not apple picking, fruit picking.
Yeah,
but we've never gone apple picking before.
Has he come up to Carver Farms and
No,
Green
he
Bluff
hasn't.
and stuff?
There's a bunch of farms over in Portland too.
Oh, okay, nice.
That he loves picking. Actually, at the beginning of July when we went for these 2 weddings, my sister and my brother got married. My dad and my husband Martin went out to pick cherries, and my dad picked like 40 pounds of cherries.
Oh my gosh.
So,
oh my gosh.
Because he wanted to turn it all into ice cream and cherry pie and cherry cobbler, and he loves doing that. He loves picking blueberries.
He should come up here during the fall and go to
he definitely
Green Bluff.
Should. Oh yeah,
because they have the pumpkins and they have the apples and and they make the cider.
Oh yeah, it's such a fun scene.
I'm like totally basic in the way that I love fall so much.
Yeah.
I'm like,
give
me
too.
My pumpkin spice latte.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
I love it. Yeah, it's so awesome. Yeah, this is a good area. I really appreciate it, and it's very Catholic and
that's
very
another
Christian
thing.
in general. I mean, as you said, you go to the library and people are like, "Oh, where do you go to church?" Like that's one of the first things they ask. Is like
just these random people.
Yeah,
and nobody asked that over in Portland. No, honestly,
no.
It's just such a haven.
Yeah,
and my brother has one of my brothers, my youngest brother Peter, has asked me why don't you want to live in Portland?
Yeah.
And I said, well,
why do you want to live in Portland?
Well, yeah, he's single and he just got a job as a host for a high-end restaurant actually.
No.
So he's doing pretty well for himself.
Nice.
But he's not thinking in terms of like a family. And I said, well, maybe when Portland stops doing the naked bike rides, then maybe I'll consider it. But,
Wait,
like literally that happens.
Crazy.
That literally happens in Portland. Like those are the kind of spectacles that happen down there. Or that the gay pride parade is literally always on Father's Day.
Oh, that's gross.
Yeah. So there's just spectacles. People just want to make a spectacle of themselves down there. They want to be weird because it's different and it's cool.
Yeah,
and
it's quirky.
It's quirky and fun.
It's not really cool anymore, though. It's kind of like a normal thing these days.
And it's more
when
everybody's quirky and weird. No one is.
It's more cool to like not be weird, like to actually be traditional. It's way quirkier to do that. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
So I mean, that on top of the whole like cost of living is higher and everything like that.
It costs a lot to live up here, but it's worth it, I think, for your kids especially, because they're growing up around people that are like similarly minded for one, but also reliable. They're nice. It's not like they're gonna like and that's not to say like there aren't bad people. There's of course gonna be bad people everywhere, but like when you're in a good church community and stuff, regardless of whether it's Catholic or not, like the Mormon population up here is very dense, but they are so awesome. Like Mormons,
they're just really nice people.
Mormons, I love Mormons. Like obviously we don't believe the same things, but
there's lots of weird things they believe.
But they are so good for the community. Like they really enrich like every community they're in, where they
the cleanest cities are the Mormon run ones. Honestly.
I know.
And
I'm like Catholics gotta take a little page out of their book.
I know. I don't think we run any cities though.
No, I know.
in America
maybe,
anyway.
Vatican City, we
run that
pretty,
one.
Yeah. But, we're pretty important in that section.
In that one.
There.
But it's amazing
totally.
the difference just in I mean, my husband talked about this too, the common good. You know? You can tell politicians don't care about the common good when they just let like homelessness run rampant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what happens in Oregon and Washington and California a lot. These politicians, like one politician, I think the mayor of Portland during COVID, during the riots and everything. His building that he was living in got attacked or something.
Oh, also sorry about the kids in the background.
That's all right.
They, I think, are at the park. They're not my kids, but
there's someone's kids.
There's a lot of kids.
They're having fun. Yeah, that's all that matters. His building, like his apartment building, got like assaulted by these rioters.
Oh wow!
And he said an apology and then left.
He said an apology to the rioters?
No, to the apartment building. And left. So he didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm sorry that I caused so much trouble. I'm going to go and live somewhere else where there's not going to be people attacking my apartment building.
Wow.
And just left. He, like, not going to take care of the problem. Not going to hire more police guards.
Yeah.
Not going to help the people in that apartment.
Right.
Just leave.
Wow.
You know, he's just going to leave because I can afford to. But you can't, so you're just going to have to suck it up.
I would live in Oregon because it's so beautiful over there. I'd live there if the politics were better.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of people's thoughts, too.
Yeah. My parents even said that. Like, when we were visiting recently, they're like, ugh, I really wish we could live here because it's like, it's close to the ocean, which my mom loves.
Yeah.
It doesn't snow very much. It's really beautiful. Like, there's a lot of really cool spots.
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, maybe...
I hear people say that about California, too.
Yeah, California is really pretty.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous place.
I'm from Southern, and, like, I love it. You know, when we go to visit and stuff, seeing the ocean and everything. Like,
oh, yeah.
I mean, as you said, like, you don't like the beaches as much as mountains, and I'm
Not
the same
as much,
way.
But, yeah. I mean,
it's still beautiful, though.
Yeah.
Like,
California and Oregon do have mountains, too. And, I mean, it's just... gorgeous there, but the politics have just run it so badly.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So if they could straighten that out.
Yeah, if you clean yourself up, I'll move there. Yeah. You know, but for now, like, Idaho has been such a great place to be because it's like you have the best of both worlds. You have like the mountains, you have the beauty, but you also have like the beauty of the people too. Yeah. So it's just it's a really good spot.
And the families too.
Yeah.
Growing up in Portland with 6 kids, you're the oddity.
Yeah.
And
totally.
But I will tell you though, the funny thing about that is that the neighbors would meet us slowly through us kids.
Sure.
They'd meet us kids before they meet the parents. Because their kids would play with us.
Oh, okay.
And I think a few of them have said later they never really knew how many kids we actually had.
It was just like a rotating
they were like,
bunch.
Just that house has a lot of kids in it. But they always wanted to come over.
That's
awesome.
And
my mom was so generous about it too.
Yeah.
She would buy apples by the box at Winco. And she would say, there's only 2 things in this house that you never have to ask for. Apples and sugar-free juice. And she would just give that out. She'd be like, if you're hungry, have an apple. Go for it, kid. And that just so attracted all these kids to my family.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, my parents really became a haven in their neighborhood.
Sure.
It's dissipated a lot now, unfortunately, because these kids have all moved away. And, you know, and I don't know that many of them have stayed Catholic still because it's hard to fight against that secularism.
Yeah, totally.
But we were just such a haven for them. And I wanted that too. You know, I knew I wanted to be a mom for a long time, basically since middle school.
Right.
Because I wanted to do what my parents did. I wanted to make a haven like they did for my family and for other families too.
So how do you want to achieve that up here? Like, because your mom's thing was the juice and the apples. Like, what is your goal to have to be kind of one of those havens?
I don't know. Martin and I need to figure that out, I think. Just to, like, this area is already very much a haven anyway.
Sure.
But the problem with all churches, no matter where you go, what Novus Ordo, TLM, or whatever, things can get kind of cliquey because, people are people.
Sure.
So just to create a community of, you know, sharing and caring. St. John's is really good about that. The meal trains and you know, the park days.
Yeah.
So a lot of families have already started kind of doing that. So I would love to do something like my mom used to do soup night.
Okay.
You know, she still actually does that in the neighborhood to
Nice.
foster neighborhood community.
Oh, that's nice.
Just like one day a week or one
Yeah.
day a month in the winter.
Are you guys in an apartment or are you in a house?
We're in like a fourplex right now.
Okay.
We're actually going to be moving in a month to a townhome.
Hey,
so yeah,
nice. Upgrades.
I mean, you know, those kind of things.
Yeah.
I grew up in
That's
a
awesome.
neighborhood that did well, my parents actually did caroling every year too.
Wow.
They've been featured in the newspaper sometimes because
Really?
caroling is so uncommon in Portland.
Yeah.
Like going door to door.
Yeah.
We actually have had a few people yell at us.
That sounds dangerous to me. Like,
well, when you have a lot of people,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like not that dangerous.
Okay.
You know, and in
Yeah.
a city that believes in gun control where most people don't have a gun,
sure.
you know, it's really
Sure.
not that dangerous.
That's true. Yeah.
So, like, the worst they can do is call the cops on you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the cops are going to be like, they're caroling.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay,
you
that
know,
makes sense.
Get a little bit of Christmas spirit there,
Yeah,
Scrooge.
yeah.
You
Come
know,
on,
but
Grinch.
most people have been really receptive to it. And
Nice.
even we have invited people that we've caroled to, my parents, to join us, and they will.
Oh, that's
Like, so their
beautiful.
group gets huger. Like, for a while, it was getting bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah, that's
because
awesome.
we would go caroling out in the snow or the rain or
Nice.
whatever, then come back to my parents' house and have a big party.
Wow.
You know, so that
That's so
kind of
cool.
thing, like continuing those kinds of traditions
Yeah.
are so great. My dad did that in Ohio too. He grew up caroling.
Wow.
And he said caroling was kind of like the Christmas version of trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
You'd go in and people would give you money
Wow.
for singing. People would give you cookies and you'd share them among all the rest of the kids. You
Yeah.
know, you'd go caroling.
Yeah.
So, like, have you seen A Christmas Story?
Yeah. Totally.
That was basically my dad's childhood.
Oh, really?
So
Wow.
he, like, a lot of the things in that movie he remembers as
Yeah.
a kid.
Oh, wow.
So he wanted to bring that tradition, you know, to a place that has never experienced it before.
Sure.
I'd love to do caroling.
They do it up here sometimes. Like
Yeah.
they did it I haven't been in a while, but they did it in after Gianna was born, I remember, because I was like really freaked out she was going to get too cold and like,
it was
die.
snowing that year, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty cold that year. But I don't know if they've done it since.
Yeah, I don't know. They
I've been
haven't
kind of
done it
checked
since
out
the
because I have kids and it's like kind of hard, but maybe that's something that you and I can look into.
Yeah.
Maybe getting started even with the moms group.
Yeah, that would be really fun.
Yeah, I think we could probably swing something like that. They used to do that with the young adults, but now the young adults have kind of moved on and have
Yeah.
kids and stuff, and so it's a little hard to get that. But I think that would be
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
To do something similar to that. So maybe
My
we can look
dad
into that.
actually, it started with just my parents doing it with us kids.
Oh wow.
And my dad's attitude was, shut up and rejoice.
yeah.
Just sing, you know.
He sounds
I
really
know.
cool.
He is so funny. He and my husband get along pretty well.
Yeah.
But he was just like the same attitude about going to mass every Sunday.
Yeah.
This is something we're gonna do.
That sounds like
And,
my grandpa.
You know,
He's
it's
like,
it's just what we're gonna do.
yeah, my grandpa was so funny because he and my grandma had 13 kids. My mom's number 7. Yeah. And so like
Nice.
my grandma would make their clothes and stuff, and the kids would be like, I don't want to wear that, and he's like, you're wearing it, kid.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it was just so funny. But oh man, that sounds really cool. Well, so what I like to ask at the end of every podcast is like, have you become more like your mom since being a mom?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. A lot of things I remember my mom saying to me, I have started saying to my daughter.
Yeah.
One of the things she actually used to say, talking about like a biblical family, she used to say, look for the splinter in your own eye before you look at the plank in
My
your
mom used
sister.
to say that
or what is
too.
it? It's the other
Yeah,
way around.
yeah.
Look at the plank in your own eye before you look at the splinter in your sister's. Kind of thing. Because I was quite bossy. I
My
guess
mom
that's
used to
why-
say that, too.
Yeah, I guess that's why I became a teacher. Because
Hey,
it's a job for being bossy.
You get paid for it. Yeah.
But yeah, so I've started saying that a little bit to
that's so
Sophia.
funny.
There's certain sayings that I will bring into it.
Yeah.
I'm different from my mom in other ways too. My mom's not very domestic.
Okay.
I think she became a stay-at-home mom because she had to.
Yeah.
She's never really liked cooking.
Okay.
I love cooking.
Mm.
She's always loved being a nurse.
Oh, yeah.
I like to say that being a nurse was her retirement from being a stay-at-home mom. So she loves it.
She gets almost a brain break in a sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So she loves it. She would love to just be a nurse for the rest of her life and have my dad be like a stay-at-home husband.
Sure.
All of us kids are out of the house now, so it's a lot easier to do that too.
Yeah.
My dad loves like cooking, and he has.
Is she a nurse now then?
Yes. Okay. She does like pre-op and post-op stuff.
Nice, cool.
For day surgery centers.
Nice.
So yeah, it's been really good for her. That's definitely a way I'm not like her. I'm more like my grandma that way.
Okay.
My grandma's very domestic.
Yeah.
She,
which is a gift. Yeah. That's huge.
It's really wonderful.
Yeah.
I love doing it. And it's one of those things going back to tradition too. I mean, our parents are baby boomers, and like my mom, probably some of it is to do with the fact that like women didn't want to be in the house. They wanted to work.
Well, because they got that new sense of identity in a sense, you know, because when you're a mom, it's like your identity is being a mom. Yeah. And when you're going out to work, that's your thing.
It's a different identity. Yeah.
Yeah, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in a sense. Like,
no.
Because I mean, I remember when I was a medical assistant, I was like, that's my identity is medical assistant.
Yeah.
You know? Now that I'm a mom, I'm like, fully mom. You know, so
fully mom. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's cool.
Oh, yeah,
that's really
so
cool.
Yeah, that's how I differ from her.
Yeah.
My hobbies and things like that are different.
Yeah.
But just a lot of the parenting styles I think are similar.
Sure.
One of the things that I take in with it too is that my mom got very good about telling my dad when he was taking it too far, taking the jokes too far,
sure.
when she needed help. So she got better about really communicating her needs.
That's huge.
I need to be better about that. About just like not, because sometimes as moms we want to just like
internalize it.
Yeah, just let it lie, or you know, like try and give your husband the benefit of the doubt, which is fine. Yeah. But sometimes you also just need to be like, look, I need you to come home and be like, what do I need to do? Yeah. You know, because I've been with these kids all day and I've been cleaning up messes all day. Yeah. And it may not be your job, but it's a lot of work and I'm tired. Sure. You know, especially when I've been pregnant. So that's another benefit of this good job that Martin has. Right. It's freed him up to have the mental and emotional capacity to help out around the house. Yeah, that's which is huge. Good. Yeah. So just communicating my needs. And I think that's true of everybody. Yeah. You know, but I see it more in my mom than I do with my aunts, for example. Just I think because my dad can push the boundaries a bit. I see. With humor, with joking. Sometimes jokes can be a little bit more jabby with him. Yeah. And it's the same with my husband, too. You know, not in a bad way. Sure. I think he's hilarious.
That's with me. I'm the jokey one, and Teddy's always like, "You're being mean," and I'm like, "Oh, sorry, it was a joke." But no. Yeah. Well, maybe that could be your Lenten thing this year. Yeah, maybe. Like, try to be a little more communicative. Nice. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, totally. This was a blast.
Yeah, as I said, you know, I'm still kind of getting into it again. So I think next week, I'm still kind of setting up interviews. So if you have anyone who wants to be interviewed, or like whoever is in the audience and wants to be interviewed, you can email me at theolivepresspodcast@gmail.com. If you have any like suggestions for how I can change it to be a little easier. I know that one of the suggestions was like split it up in parts, you know, because it's hard to listen to like a 2-hour podcast, you know, all the way through. So I'm looking into doing that. We're still kind of trying to figure out the editing stuff. Teddy is doing the editing and the tech stuff, you know, on the side when he's doing his job too. So we're still kind of figuring that out. So just bear with me until we figure all of that out. Once we kind of get a little bigger, maybe if that's God's will, you know, maybe we'll look into updating some of our stuff a little more. But for now, it's just kind of it's a side thing, you know, to give moms a little more of a voice. So yeah, we're still kind of figuring that out and trying to work out. Like, for example, our laptop got stepped on, so we have half of the screen able to be used currently. So yeah, we're really working with what we got. So
#mom life.
I know it's very on brand for this. Yeah. So anyway, well, let's finish off with a prayer. You know? Sure. So, in the name of the Father and Son and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Dear God, thank you so much for giving us the time and the space to talk about motherhood. Please help us in our pursuit of motherhood. Help us to be good stewards for you and to do your will in all things. And please help our husbands and our children and our families as we go forward. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Spirit.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.